So the bars on the right side? Yeah, yeah,
There you
yeah.
are. Yeah, but this wasn't even here, I don't think. I think they
So,
should hear
like,
you now.
yes, you want to go onto the cog, and it takes you onto the settings, and then just make sure that it's actually not going through your voice meter. That it's on default,
Yep. So hopefully we'll see it.
and then it should be working now.
It's working. I think
Perfect.
stream heard you. Describe that.
Hey, so sorry, guys. I feel good and a little less sweaty. I might have to go change my pants.
We did it. We figured it out.
Okay, they figured it out for me. So actually, guys, I put this podcast together so that 3 other streamers could help me set up my audio. Show's over, and no, I'm kidding.
Great episode 1. On to episode 2.
All right. So the answers to the troll questions, if you guys were wondering, we got what was the first one? The first one was BDO Blue. You said, when did you say Lon is coming to NA?
June 31st.
Okay, quoted. And Namako-chan's answer to being a cute Asian girl with a British accent was, I like the power. Although he said it with a much sexier accent. And Good Vibes Guy succeeded Aeon Janice in a breakdance off. Okay, so MMO players love theory crafting. I think if you think about it, everyone does it, no matter what. Some people theory craft about their characters, some people theory craft about the game in general. So we'll do a little bit of everything. I wanted to start off with talking about where we came from, what was our favorite game, not including BDO, and what about that game that's most different about BDO do you love? So for me, my favorite game was an old game called Shadowbane, and it was full loot PvP, and it had a lot of character customization, as in it gave you stat pools and skill pools, and not every LAN was the same, not every rogue was the same, everyone was different. So I like that because you could break the game. You could make a really shitty character, or you could make an amazing character, and you could kill someone and take all their stuff, which felt like high risk versus reward. It was one of the only times where I felt like when I PvP'd, like the risk of losing was really high enough to the point where it made me nervous. So Shadowbane was my favorite old school game. That's very, very different, and that's where I started. What about you, Good Vibes? Where did you start? MMOs.
I think one of my first MMOs was Ragnarok Online, a great like 2/3D anime style MMO that's still around today, but I don't know. I honestly don't know what I liked about it. It was similar to the one you described, where they had classes that you could vary their skill builds and stats, and not have the same type of assassin. There are multiple builds per se you could go. I like that one. It also had some similarities to BDO. It had kind of it had something similar to a node war or like a castle siege. There's a lot of teamwork involved in high level play. There's also open world bosses that you occasionally would run into PvP over, etc., etc. It was very grindy, RNG based as well. That was probably my first taste of MMOs.
It had a pretty good art style too, right? Like, wasn't it? You said it was 2D, wasn't it? Almost looked like a really well drawn side scroller, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's why I say like 2D, 3D, because the buildings were 3D, but then your characters were 2D. It was a little odd, but it's definitely like an anime-ish kind of cutesy character models.
Would you say that colors your experience with all MMOs? Like, do you think back to it and compare to it all the time?
I wouldn't say I compare to it all the time, but I definitely have nostalgic goggles for that. I also did play a good amount of World of Warcraft on and off, starting in high school. The raids really got me in World of Warcraft more so than PvP. The sense of progression and working together with a team to like get through that actually is what kept me interested in World of Warcraft when I did play it.
Did you PvP a lot in WoW?
Not really. I PvP, even though I mained a rogue. I didn't PvP all that much. I didn't really get too heavy into it. There was a brief time where I did for a little bit, but not too seriously.
Cool. All right, Namiko, first MMO. What was it?
World of Warcraft.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was gone.
do you measure this game up to it? Like, is this just holding you over until the next WoW that comes out, or are you in love with BDO?
No. The action in BDO is way more fluent and like it's more reactive than World of Warcraft was. Like I was a big PvPer in World of Warcraft, so moving to a game like BDO where PvP is essentially the game, because right now, like even in the last few expansions of Warcraft, the PvP has essentially been void. Like you can see by a lot of pro players quitting and stuff like that. So a game like this, which is primarily focused on PvP, it was really interesting.
Nice. I think you would like Shadowbane if you had the chance to play it. I think for me, when I played WoW, the point where it felt like the game was a waiting room is when I stopped becoming interested in it, because you transport to everywhere and you didn't run into people. There was no open world.
Oh yeah, you don't see any players around anymore, basically outside of towns. So it kind of like I think a game like that, like MMOs require you to see other players and to have that kind of interaction with players, which is what BDO still allows you to do. Like, could you imagine BDO with like a flying mount kind of thing?
I don't know how I feel about that. You know what? It's funny because when I think about RBF and what's the Savage Rift and what's the one that's sort of one-on-one, the other PvP room that we have?
Team battle.
Thank you, Team Battle. We already have in my mind, we already have too much instance PvP. I would like it if they took all that time and effort and put it into open world PvP and gave us some kind of reward there. As opposed to it being otherwise. But then again, I played a game where there were no instances and no quests, so that's where I started. BDO Blue, where did you start?
I'm kind of new to MMOs. I spent all my life like on console, in the console gaming community, and I just started playing MMOs like maybe around like Mists of Pandaria time for WoW. But I hated WoW. I instantly swapped to Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I love that game. I played it probably as religiously as I played BDO.
I played SWTOR back in the day, and I don't remember. Oh God, Hutball was so much fun. I played it before it went free to play, and there was that. What was that class that had like a scorpion pull and a rocket punch?
A what?
Had a scorpion pull and like a rocket punch. It was one of the. I think it was like the bounty hunter class. You're talking about SWTOR, right?
Yeah.
Republic? Yeah.
I'm just trying to think what you mean by scorpion pull.
Yeah, it had like a cable. Get over here.
Oh yeah. Juggernaut. Or no, Bounty
Hunter. It was Bounty Hunter. Yeah, that game was fun. I could do that battlegrounds on that game nonstop. There was something about it that I liked. Cool. All right, so moving on back to BDO. Where is the game right now? Where is it going? I want to talk about the theory crafting first. Okay, so I do want to leave Siege aside a little bit because not everyone who's watching gets a chance to experience it. Not everyone is going to do it, but they are going to do Node Wars. They are going to do small scale GVG. So maybe Siege balancing, especially with what we just got hit with, we could probably leave that Hornet's Nest alone for a little bit. But if you could have one small improvement for BDO that changed its PvP but didn't cost PA much money, what would it be? So I'm going to start with mine. And the first one that I would start with is RBF. Like it or not, it's the medium to small scale PvP unless you're fighting over grind spots. And I think more effort should be thrown into it. I would like it if it was larger when it was full, or if the size was capped a little bit smaller so it didn't feel like such a clusterfuck. Right now, I don't think 60... Is it 60 people?
Yeah,
60,
I believe
right?
so.
Yeah. I don't think 60 people should be fighting in that room, because when you do, it just turns into whoever's got the biggest AoE and whoever's the most bruiser-like feeling effective, and then us little squishy ninjas and tamers running around the side hoping to grab a hold of somebody. At least that's the way it feels like to me. I'm not a high skilled player. I'm like medium, slightly gear carried, or very gear carried. So you guys probably have better experiences. I've seen you guys PvP. But
that's like PvP in general though. Like in Node Wars, it's cluster versus cluster.
Yeah.
It's fair. Do you think it should stay that many people in that size of room, or do you think there's a way you could make RBF slightly better without changing the size of it?
I think making it more of a open area would be a lot better. Like the spawn room is probably one of the worst designs I've seen for a spawn room.
So
like
you don't
ever.
get camped at spawn.
Yeah, but like you can get the invulnerable, essentially vulnerability, but like the fact that you essentially fall down rather than being like a pathway kind of. I don't know why they decided on that.
Could you explain the invulnerability, or did you say the vulnerability of falling down and taking damage? Is that what you meant?
No. So like so essentially the guy who sells you the potions, you can take a buff from him, and it's like a low mini PA, I guess. So if you are being spawn camped, that's like to stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So I've done
You can-
thousands of RBFs, and full disclosure, I've never picked up that buff.
oh
I probably
yeah,
should.
it's really good.
It's so
Wait, so
great if
people
you
are
can
abusing
hostage
it?
buff.
No, it's designed to stop people camping.
Yeah,
That
it's the
makes sense.
counter abuse mechanic basically.
Oh, okay. I have noticed, and I won't say who, but I've noticed a few streamers like using escape to save points in RBF. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's the same in Node Wars. You always escape. It's like
Yeah,
essentially a second V, if you think of it that way.
I just need to get good and escape.
I
Yeah,
don't think it should be
personally-
allowed in RBF.
I
I
agree.
agree.
Yeah. It's essentially two Vs. But
Yeah,
a safer
personally-
V.
I've never used it in Node War or RBF. Yeah, I just think it should be a simple disallow it in Node War sieges and RBF because it's not V is an actual skill that each player gets, whereas escape is a bit of a cheese mechanic, in my opinion.
Who
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
Right?
I
It's
can
not
dive-
intended to be used that way.
Yeah, I could dive into the back line as a tamer, kill, get 1,000 points, escape. We would.
Yeah.
What do you think about them adding a CC break mechanic like WoW? I haven't played WoW since Lich King, so it may have changed a lot, but just this is a common ground that we've all had. When I remember it, WoW had a CC break that everyone could use like once on a 2 or 3 minute cooldown, slightly less than, let's say, our current V. But you could use it while you were crowd controlled. Do you think that we should have something like that, as opposed to them doing what they're doing to the combos right now?
I think it's if we're talking about the old system as a way to kind of combat that old system, I think that definitely would have been an option they could have gone down, right? It essentially, actually, we kind of already have that with V, right? V is essentially our trinket in WoW. We can kind of get out, except for grabs, it's a little wonky, but I'm not sure if that's intended or if that's just they haven't fixed it in over X amount of years.
Is
Go
grab
ahead.
the only CC that you can't V out of?
You actually, I believe it's knockdown is the CC that you cannot V out of. Grabs is just when you do V out of a grab. Sometimes you stay there, sometimes you rubber band. It's like kind of RNG when you V inside of a grab. What's going to happen? But I believe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the knockdown CC will disallow you from Ving out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Sure.
so we kind of already have the trinket system in the game, if you want to think of it that way. But if you're talking about another one, essentially, it could be an option, right? It could help again with the combo, the infinite combo meta that we were in before, where it's kind of first CC wins because then you just follow up with your bread and butter combo, and usually it's enough to kill someone. I think that the whole system needed a bit of an overhaul in some way. So I don't think a simple fix like that would have been or a fix by itself. I think
Wouldn't have been
they
full.
need.
I
to
think
do more.
I think coming from a ninja, that says a lot, considering like the gameplay. So if I've heard that 2 other like high end ninjas say the same thing, that like they're not totally upset with the fact that they can't do the long chains anymore. BDO Blue, we haven't heard from you in a bit. What do you think about the CC chains being dropped in half? Are you okay with the combos being shorter overall?
Yes and no. I mean, so the whole reason why they said they were doing this change was to prevent one comboing. But with the recent change in KR, it's literally back to one comboing. You don't need like super high gear at all. With all the changes they've been doing, they've scaled it down to the point to where you can literally steal one combo without having like extreme amounts of gear.
Could you elaborate on the recent change that has allowed that?
Well, where they lowered the DR you got from combat from the renown, from the renown fame and all that, and they
Yeah, we
also
got that too.
increased the PvP damage. They increased the PvP damage as well, and between just the like, okay, so the first combat score that they originally had, NA didn't get. That one was extremely tanky, like you couldn't one combo. Then they kind of slightly changed it, and that's the one NA got first. And that one was all right. It wasn't like some people could still one combo, but you kind of still needed a bit more gear for it. But now, like, it's literally, it seems like almost anybody at standard gear or soft cap gear can one combo again, and it just makes me wonder what was the point in all of this if they're just gonna bring it back to one comboing. So I think like using kind of like Trinket from like WoW, the problem with that is if you have enough AP, it doesn't matter. The moment you get the first CC off, even if they use the Trinket, they have to try to get out. You can still use use any skills to instantly kill them with a couple skills. I think what might be better is imagine if every class had some type of PA, but not as long and not as like, maybe not a complete PA, but more like a DR thing that you can use. And like, maybe you get like 2 to 3 seconds of DR of like half your damage mitigated. So you can actually live longer and potentially actually just get out instead of just getting out of a CC, but instantly still dying because they have the damage to kill you with a shotgun or something.
What about if every class had a buff like that, but they had to get it by doing a combo? So you do like it's different for every class, and that would be something that they would have to create, but you do this combo of like 4 or 5 abilities, and now all of a sudden you have that defensive buff. And it has a cooldown just like you said, but instead of just having it at one button press, have it be an actual combo. Do you think that would be more rewarding?
I mean, probably in 1v1s, but I feel like trying to get that off, certain classes will probably have a really hard time trying to do that in large scale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, imagine a tamer having to do 4 or 5 things up in front of somebody while they're just getting wailed by, you know, Jin Blizzards and a bunch of other AoEs.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here and just talk about maybe like a slightly broader subject on this matter. Should they be focusing on balancing the classes individually, the combo system? Should they be focusing on balancing the gear on the scaling of those things, basically? And should they be scaling for a certain gear point, right? Should they be balancing around soft cap? Should they be balancing for large scale? Should they be balancing for small scale? There's like a lot of different things and ways that they can approach this balancing. I think ultimately it's going to have to be a combination of everything. But do they balance what? Because if they wanted to change the one-shot combo, they did that by both changing how gear worked and how the CC system worked. Do you think that they should focus on one area instead and think that will, right? If you keep one system, right? Let's say they keep the AP, DP, whatever system the way it was before, and they just focused on CCs and how that all fit in. Would that be a better approach, or vice versa, where they just focused on gear and build differences and kind of scaling out damage in accordance with the current CC meta? Did that make sense at all?
No, it does. I have an answer to that. I think they honestly should. Okay, it's easier for them to do balances on a whole and say, let's just change the combat system and hope everything falls in line. Unfortunately, I don't, and I think most of the player base would agree, I don't have a lot of faith in it actually happening. It seems to be that they don't have the formula. If they're going to make changes like they did recently, every class has got to be looked at. And it feels like they should have went hand in hand. So now it almost seems like they're backpedaling and going, okay, so the grab classes are going to have to do more damage with each grab. I've heard that's happened because grabs are now weaker because they're not a CC unto themselves. But we should have got that all at once. But then again, the caveat to that is MMO communities, we're super impatient. We want everything all at once, but there's such a thing as a power creep and a meta shift, and you can't really say fix everything in one shot too. It feels like they should have done class balance individually for me. I don't know about you guys.
I think they shouldn't have added everything at once, personally. I think adding the APDR change as well as the CC in the same patch made people like just panic rather than actually calculating it properly and the scaling personally. Like I know that like Tamers is a really good example. Like the different damage difference between the Tamer with 260 and 250 is completely like insane. The damage difference because of the renown score. But then adding that on top of the CC system as well, I think it just discouraged people to want to PvP at the moment as well.
Yeah, too much all at once.
Yep.
You're not wrong. I know, I think it was back in January. Like, honestly, what it feels like they did was not have enough time on it with the QA team. Because I know back in January, February, they actually started trying to hire for a QA team. I'm not sure how that played out. But you can see from like just the way that they've done it, they pushed it all out, but then they were like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going to work these 30 days on fixing everything based off of your feedback, aka we didn't test it all. So now we're going to rely on you guys for the feedback. But they did mention that they will be like looking at like class balances as well. But unfortunately, because of the way they did it, they have to fix the combat score stuff before they can really try to fine tune any classes.
Yeah, honestly, over the next 30 days, it's like I spent I don't know how long last night just messing around with the CC changes, trying to find combos and things like that. But then afterwards I thought, well, what's the point? Because next week it could change again, or the week after that, or whatever, because in the next 30 days, all the metas, like the gear meta, the CC meta, are all probably going to end up to something different by the end of these 30 days or so. So I feel like talking about balance and what they should and should not do at this point definitely is like helpful for them if they hear feedback, but they've already clearly, at least I hope, have a plan that they are planning on executing, because what it seemed like to me was they implemented these big changes as part one of a series of changes that they have planned. They haven't necessarily revealed what the other changes are going to be, and the biggest fault which they recognized and kind of reconciled was they didn't warn us, right? They didn't say, hey, this is our plan, we've got 5 major changes that we're planning to roll out over the course of X weeks, so be prepared, there's going to be some big shifts in meta, etc., etc. Please bear with us and give us your feedback. Instead, they just were like, wham bam, here's the patch, oh, by the way, we're changing things.
Mm-hmm. So in the long run, it boils more down to communication than the actual changes itself, it sounds like. Let's move off of meta and individual balance shifts, because we have no idea. I mean, it's so fresh, and I feel like we could talk about that alone for hours, but we have a couple other things as well. Build variation and class variation. I personally wish that it was as equally viable to build AP as it was evasion, DP, etc. And even accuracy, although I don't know about it anymore because I keep throwing free accuracy at us with gear and stuff like that. Do you think this is just the wrong game to wish for that? To wish that that you could look at 4 tamers and all 4 of them could be built completely different and still be viable? Is that just a thing that can't happen for BDO? Should I shut up about this, or is it something that's viable and we're just it's not within reach yet?
Well, the thing is, in KR, it actually is viable to an extent, but the thing is, you have to have extremely high gear. For example, there's a sword. He's got 240 AP, but he's an evasion built sword. So most players, because the general like meta is like built stacking a lot of AP, they actually can't do too much damage to him because of the fact that with his new combat system, he has a good amount of DR for when he does get hit, but he also has a lot of evasion to prevent a lot of the damage from actually hitting him. On top of that, because of how high his gear is, he's got 240 AP, so he can actually harass and do quite a bit of damage. I think last time I saw him in a node war, him alone, before he died, he took down like 2 structures in like somebody's base within the time that he was actually alive, just harassing the base the entire time. It seems like you can actually have this kind of variation of builds, but you just have to have such high gear to do it that a majority of players just aren't going to get there for a very long time if they still are sticking around to the game at that point.
That brings up another question, is that in the games that I've played where you can do that, you would level pretty quick and you could get gear a lot faster. But the business model of this game is to make gear really expensive and RNG and a bit of a casino so that they can get money. And that's fine, I guess. But does that business model make it impossible to explore? Like, are we just too scared to say, okay, it's going to cost me $7 billion to try a tanky bruiser tamer? I have no idea if it's going to work. Should I not bother? Because really, I mean, maybe it's not even about the money. Maybe it's about the time, because you can just sell that gear back at least. At least it's not soul-bound, right? But is that what's holding people back from trying different builds? Or is it just that right now KR is slightly different than NA, and NA is not caught up to the point where we realize we can try other things?
I just don't think it's viable in the current meta at the moment, personally. Like, I know, like, for example, EU is very AP heavy focused right now because of the buffs that they got. So you then have to sacrifice like your progression that you're making in AP to make one of these new builds. And like, for example, evasion can be heavily countered with accuracy. So I think it's like more of the scaling on how they work in terms of like evasion and accuracy as a stat itself.
Scale down accuracy a little bit because we get so much free accuracy, and scale up evasion. Maybe that'll balance everything out, you think?
No, I think evasion's like actually like a really bad stat in terms of like when it comes down to gameplay. Like, because it's essentially an RNG stat, whereas DR is like percent reduction.
Yeah, it's just a balancing issue between the stats, because AP, and it's also the way the economy scales with it. AP is the most expensive. DP is much cheaper to buy, but the stats don't equal out. Like, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio in any stat, right? For AP to damage reduction, it's not like 1-to-1. Evasion for accuracy, it's not 1-to-1. So these builds become very weird to balance, and it's also dependent on at what point does that build become viable, right? If you have pry accessories and pry armor, should that be equal to like a DP pry build? Is that going to be equal to an AP pry build kind of thing? It's just the balancing between the stat weights for all the stats are too out of sync and not linear, basically.
It is Blue, this is a question for you that raises another question. I think they're called premium characters. The internet cafe characters that you guys can kind of make. I'm probably calling it something funny. Do you think that's helping with people being able to try out different builds? Like, does it come with evasion and accuracy and AP and DP gear?
Yeah, you can actually have, it's basically Tri accessories. They have like Tri Red Coral equivalents, Tri Tungrads, and Tri Narcs. They have the Tri Bassi, Tri the hybrid AP evasion belt, and then the Tri Centaur. They have like the standard gear that you would usually have at Tri with Tet armor, Tet weapons. It helps, awesome. But at the same time, it's kind of really hard to. It's not the best way to figure out how strong a build can actually be, because again, you don't have food buffs, you don't have villa buffs, you don't have crystals, so you're missing out on a lot of stuff. So like, if you were to go up against a regular standard Tet bot, like standard soft cap build player who's got even just crystals, you can notice a difference. Like, that's the downside to it all. It's like it helps, but at the same time, it's kind of like you got to take it with a grain of salt, because you're not sure entirely how like accurate it'll be once you have actual gear similar real gear.
Okay. Coming from chat here, general consensus seems to be that we believe that, this is not me, this is chat, that that PA, I don't know if it's Pro this or Cacao, PA is not actually that concerned with balancing PvP. Like, even though this is stated as a PvP game and that's how you have fun in it, they're not really concerned about making sure PvP is balanced. And I can kind of feel that in all aspects of the game. I kind of agree with that when I think of just looking at like grind speed with the same gear. Like, you take a tamer and you put it next to a ninja and you put it next to a ranger and put them in history to see the difference. So is it just like it's not going to be a thing? They're just not going to worry about trying to balance it out and they're going to tell us that they are trying to, or
Oh,
where
if that was the case, they wouldn't add this CC system and try and add this renown system.
Yeah.
They would just leave it how it was if they weren't like going to bother trying to fix it.
I think it just depends on what you see as balance. Like, for example, for me, like, I feel like they're doing a decent job. It could be better of like doing it to where certain classes do well in certain areas. And if you want to be able to do well in these 5 different areas, you might have to have multiple different classes, which, I mean, yes, it's a money sink for us because we have to spend more money on, weight and all that. But that's just kind of how it feels like to me. Like, for example, Lon, for example, she's pretty good at 1v1s, not great at large scale. Her PvE is kind of, it's all right, where then you go for like Witch Wizard, his PvE is really amazing. Large scale is really good. 1v1s is pretty meh. It feels like it's just more of a, each class have its pros and cons. And if you want to have pros and everything, you just have to have multiple classes for that.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was. My sentiments exactly. It's basically, I think a lot of players are expecting to be on equal footing with all classes in all situations. And I don't think that is how this game is designed. I believe that Blue is right in that a ninja has specific roles, has specific uses in Node Wars. Their purpose is to not jump in, obliterate everybody, and then teleport out. That's like a wizard's job, right? And every class has its role per se. Because it's not a Trinity game, those roles aren't clearly defined, right? So a berserker could peel for their teammates. They could jump in, be on the offensive, and try and be a CC bot on the enemy team. They have a variety of uses, but they may not be as favorable per se as a witch or wizard whose role is very clear, very defined. Or let's say ninja, for example. Ninja's role can be a little bit harder to see or identify, whereas the witch's wizard's role in large scale especially is very clear. You jump in, do damage, jump out. It's much simpler and cleaner that way. Now, one thing that they could potentially do is more clearly define these roles and almost separate these roles further so that there's no confusion about, oh, ninja isn't good. Everybody says, oh, ninja isn't good because they suck at Node Wars and they suck at grinding. It's like, well, that just because a ninja's role is different than everybody else's and their playstyle is meant for more of a solo play or whatever, right? If they come out and say like these are intended designs behind these classes, then people won't. They'll know what they're getting into basically when they sign up for that class.
I like where your head's at, but I also think there's something to say about having to find your own role. This reminds me of a pretty cool game called WildStar that let you switch between 2 roles with your character. I think WoW had that at some point in time too, although don't quote me on it because I wasn't around for it. But where you could actually make... It does? Nice. You could make 2 different builds because of your skill sets, and you could switch between the 2 with a short cooldown, so you could play as a stalker stealther or switch to a tank. I don't know. I don't think that's 100% possible with the skills that we have, because it feels like every skill in this game is a different iteration of ranged or melee damage, or damage with one of those fighting game concepts, frontal guard, etc., etc. So I don't know if they'd be able to. Maybe if you took certain skills on the skill chart, other ones were locked out, and that way you could have 2 different variations, and if they allowed you to have 2 different builds and switch between the 2, that'd be pretty cool. All right, so class balancing. Let's move out of that. I have one more question that I was asked a lot, and I don't actually have an answer for it, but I think you guys might shine some insight on it. Stealth. Stealth is always kind of divisive in MMOs, where some people think it's really unfair, especially if it's an open world game where you get jumped and you can have your stuff taken from you or you can die. I find stealth a little underwhelming in this game. I don't know if it needs to be fixed. It got a little better with the Rabam, with the ability to switch and move around in stealth. If you don't have much to say on, don't have a lot of experience with it, how do you feel about it when other people are using it on you? Do you think it's fine? And if you do have experience with it, do you think it could get better? How would you change stealth? Or is it perfect?
You wanna go ahead, Namiko?
Like it used to be, you were really slow, right? Like you cast stealth, but you could never get ahead of anybody. You had to have ninja sense and know where they're going to be before they're there to catch up to them. So they fixed that a little bit, and I like it, but I still feel like it could be used in conjunction with skills to make it more unique and useful.
Do you have, like an example?
Yeah.
Of
Like-
what you
Well, we don't
did?
have a lot of. I think it. Well, first example I can think of is better gap closers only when you're in stealth, or have your moves change when you're in stealth, so that certain skills are completely different coming out of stealth than they are within them. That'd be like a first example that I can think of.
How would that work with like the skill tree? I'm just like trying to think of how you would change stealth to it not be stealth.
Well, no, sorry, that's not what I meant. So you're in stealth and take a certain skill, and when you cast it from stealth, it does something different. So as opposed to, I guess for me, I find the gap closers very underwhelming in this game because of all of the elevation problems in the game. You know, where you can't actually gap close against someone who's up on top of something, etc., etc. I do think the first fix for stealth that they did by adding the Rabam, so you could actually move around, you can do your shift movement in stealth, and you can close the gap a little bit and do different moves and stuff is okay. But if I remember, Good Vibes, you could probably speak of this. When it first came out, you couldn't even use awakening skills from the new stealth, if I'm not mistaken. You had to switch and break your stealth first before you could. So like, there's just, it feels clunky.
Yeah, it definitely felt clunky before. I think with the Rabam skills, honestly, that's pretty much all we need. Because you have to consider balance as well. So if you made stealth, if you made it ninjas able to like sprint and stealth, it would be a little bit too strong, I think. So the counterpart is you are slower in stealth. I think with the Rabam, honestly, I'm actually pretty happy with the way with stealth is right now. Yes, I do think it is a little bland in terms of, at least especially for ninjas. I think Kunoichis do have like a stealth specific engagement that they can use.
Okay, I did not know.
But yeah, as far as ninjas especially, yeah, it is a little bland, but
it's not too bad.
I think it's much better with the Oni Shadow.
Okay. All right, let's move out of PvP and class balancing because it's a trap that I keep getting sucked into very easily. The sandbox. Your wish list for something small. Okay, so here's one I wish we could have. I would love a processing minigame. Everyone in Bastion is probably sick of me talking about it, but a processing minigame where at the end you get a bulk amount of processing. I know with the new stones that are coming, it's going to speed up AFK processing, but I would actually like, this sounds retarded and weird, active processing. So do you have anything that you would like to add to the sandbox of the game, to life skills, to the map in general, to something that's not combat that you would love to see? People are laughing at me because they're... there we go. That you would like to see in the game that is just like total wish list. You don't think it's something they'll ever do, but you'd like to see it.
Have a use for all my max level donkeys.
Wait, what? How many donkeys do you have?
Well, I mean, technically I don't have any anymore because my ranger is banned, but let's just say media days were spent leveling donkeys until there was PvP.
I think you're the first donkey breeder I've ever heard of in BDO.
So, horse breeding, you don't make much money off of it, right? I hear nobody ever talking about horse breeding. So,
correct.
Storage be global, someone says. So balancing the life skills so they all can make equal amount of money, is that the thing? Or is it really all boiled down to money though? Can there be another reward for it?
This game revolves around money. Money equal, because you can buy everything in the game. Money is power. Money directly translates to your character's strength, as well as time spent and some luck, obviously. But for the most part, if you have infinite silver, you're going to be able to progress basically infinitely or until hard cap. So I definitely think balancing life skills a little bit more could be helpful. I think, yeah, something like horse breeding, which is something that a lot of people actually enjoy doing. You do see tier 8s go up all the time. You see the occasional dream horse go up. Like it is something that people do enjoy. And it would be nice if it was a viable life skill that people didn't feel they were wasting time doing, right? Even if they enjoy it.
What are the, by the way, this is coming from a redheaded stepchild. What are the redheaded stepchilds of life skills? We got horse breeding. What else? Is that pretty much it? Is that the only really shitty one? Hunting and what, sailing?
Hunting, sailing.
Yeah.
We need to find ways to make them better. I had, where was it? Let me see here. Oh, this was a pretty cool one, and it was not life skills at all. In-game marriage. Everybody can start laughing at me now. In-game marriage. But if you marry somebody, you get a buff when you're grinding together, so that it's not as bad you're not motivated to only solo grind, so you get more skill points, more XP, maybe even like 1.5 character loot, so it's not as good as going to somewhere where everyone gets their own loot, but not as bad as solo loot or group loot. What do you guys think of something like that? I got the idea from City of Heroes. So City of Heroes had this thing where you could actually mentor and you could have someone of a different level go with you, and they would automatically be buffed up to one level under yours with their current skills. They wouldn't get new skills, but their current skills would be as powerful as if they were one level lower than you. And that made it so that they got very good XP to go with you, even though that area wouldn't be good for them on their own. So some kind of pairing buff where you would be able something to motivate people to group. It's an MMO, and all we do is solo and watch other people stream. Like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I might be pessimistic, but I would despise that system personally.
Why?
If you want to encourage group farming, and encourage that kind of gameplay, you should just do what Gyphon has, and just spread that out across the world, personally, and not limit people with XP wise. There's a lot of
person.
There's no point group farming right now if you essentially get more money in XP solo. There's no encouragement to group farming.
Yeah, basically. Sorry, I agree with that. Basically, the marriage system could be interesting, but they would, in order for that to work, they would have to add in efficient spots to do that duo. Because currently, a lot of solo spots you can clear very efficiently, even over clear sometimes. So having a second person there is basically a waste, right? You can't clear this. They'd have to have kind of duo specific spots. Like Miramok Ruins is like a 3-person spot. Given Temple is a 5-person spot. They'd have to have a duo spot. Maybe there is one, like Akhman or something. I'm not sure, or Histria. I'm not sure, but
okay. So even though it's kind of a neat idea, you're right. People already clear so fast. It might not even be the way of making people group up more in this game. I'm trying to think of ways to make it a bit more social. I like the fact that you can get everything done on your own. I think it's kind of cool. But I think about the other MMOs that you played where you were really involved in the community. What did it have? For me, City of Heroes it was a huge MMO, but it actually had role-playing in it because people loved writing their comic book story. They liked reading other people's bios. You could make your character look like anything, and it had a mission creator where you could create your own missions and people could play them. So it had that was its aspects of making it more social. What does BDO have?
PvP.
Yeah, it's going to be centered around PvP for sure.
So
PvP events, or if you've ever played the Rift, the MMO, where they had random spawning rifts around the world. So essentially, they were little mini events. So then you could easily just do stuff like that with PvP.
Was that similar to Guild Wars as well? Because didn't Guild Wars 1 or 2 have something like that? Little mini events?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, stuff like that. Just encourage people to move around. I don't know how you would implement it properly, but something the game itself is focused on PvP.
Yeah.
That's the true game.
I agree with basically that. Essentially, open world events that happen. One way you could do Ragnarok Online, had world bosses. They had hundreds of world bosses, and they had respawn timers just like our world bosses. But the loot only went to one party, right? The highest damaging party. and you had like an MVP title for the single person who did the most damage. And if there were no parties, then that person got all the loot. So basically, these PvP objectives, right? And this has been touched on before. People have talked about like oil rigs in Valencia in the desert that like people could fight over at certain times that were off Node War times. Just like twice a day, they would open up and like guilds could compete for it, for potentially resources that would like an extra defense in a Node War on that region, right? Or like your tower would have like 10 or 15 or maybe 20% more HP if you owned the oil refinery in Valencia, if you fought in Valencia, you know, something like that, where it's not just more money. It's not just a replacement. It adds value, but it's not a monetary value. It adds, I guess, a different type of value that we don't have yet.
I like it. It makes me think of Shadowbane again. And I go back to it. I think it's because it's my first MMO, but also because there was no story. It was just pure PvP. So in this game, you fought over everything, and even your subclasses. So you took a class and a race, and you had your own stat points and skill points, and you could allocate it and make it any way you want. But there were 3 subclasses, and those were created by, you'd get them by killing world monsters. They weren't super tough. You could 1v1 them, but they were kind of tough. And they would spawn every 6 hours, and people would go fight over them, and then this little rune would drop, and you would apply it to yourself, and you'd get that subclass. And then the other thing they'd have is they have these little resource nodes that would open up for an hour or 2 every day, random different windows of time, so that people all over the planet could play. And your guild would go and you would claim it. You wouldn't have to build anything around it, like, because they had Siege Warfare. You wouldn't have to build anything around it. You would just claim it and try to keep it for the hour and fight anyone off of it. If you kept it, it would send rare resources to your guild bank for the day, every hour for the day. And you could use them for stuff. What if they added something along those lines to very unused places like the ocean and Valencia? And what kind of materials could they use? You know, like there's things like whale tendon potions, whale tendon, blue whale tendons, that kind of thing. Is there any other? Are there enough of those type of materials that they could create these kind of nodes? And would it help?
Currently, I'm not sure.
I don't know if there's enough stuff to make it. You know what I mean? Like other than just here's more silver.
That doesn't mean they can't make them, right? They could just add in a resource that says, your Hwacha will have 20% more HP and do 20% more damage if you own this objective, right, during Node Wars, something like that. Or your guild will receive a 5 AP bonus while in Valencia, just like at all times while your guild owns this, right? Just like a kind of some sort of stat boost rather than a necessarily resource. Or it could just give you resources for actually placing on nodes, so that you kind of save some funds from like node towers and things like that. Like it would provide you X amount of fences, X amount of cannons, cannonballs, things like that. You know, those kind of resources. I don't know how valuable that would be though.
Something
I've always like the idea. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, regarding like the whole group trying to get more like social content. Something that I really loved from Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I know Blessed Online has it. It's like just having like certain areas, certain regions being open to PvP combat, like without karma, right? So like basically, let's just say certain parts of Valencia or certain parts of Kamasovia, to where you can flag up on people without losing karma. Obviously, the downside was like over there, because there's 2 factions, so you could kill the other faction. Not really sure how they would be able to implement something like that here, but basically you can essentially start world PvP. If you bring a couple friends, start killing the people in certain areas, then people from the other side will start coming, and this is hopefully what usually happens. And then like basically you start just having this huge PvP scene that you started just from your friends ganking people in certain areas. As for like the buffs that Good Vibes Guy mentioned, like if you like controlled a certain thing, you can get buffs for Node War or whatever. They're actually planning on implementing that, but it's going to be for Node Wars. I wasn't sure when they translated it, I wasn't sure if it was right or not, if it was either owning a region or owning a node in that region. But basically, if you own one of those two, you'll get a buff for that region. Basically, as long as you own that node. Cool. But like I said, I wasn't sure if they mentioned a region or a node, because I mean, the way that it sounded, it made it sound like they wanted it to have it for the entire, like if you just have a node in the region. But when they translated it on Infinite Global, they said if you own the region. So we just kind of have to wait to see what they do with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. When did they announce that?
Basically when they first announced season 5 rehearsals for KR PvP, Node Wars and stuff.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They kind of said like that's what they were working on, but we didn't actually get to see that at all because then they canceled rehearsals. Now there's no Node Wars at all.
Right.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm looking through here. I'm trying to go on to another subject. It's so easy for me to just keep going back to balancing. I don't know if we've touched enough on... okay, here's a very general question. Should you make as much money in life skills as you do in grinding? If it's active. So not AFK life skilling, like overnight logging in, but just active life skilling. Should you make the same amount of money? Okay, for me... Hey, Chaos. For me, that was a shout out for one of my favorites. For me, I don't make a lot of money when I grind. Maybe it's a tamer thing. Maybe I'm not great at PvE. I sit at around 536 renown score, Tet Kudum, whatever, and I'm on a tamer. I probably, when I'm soloing, I make somewhere around 18 mil an hour tops, plus any lucky drops. I've never played a really, really high-end grinding class, but I would love it if when I'm burnt out of grinding, I could make the exact same amount approximately from my life skill. Do I just not know how to do that? Is that something I need to work on, get good, Jin? Or do you think that it is imbalanced and they need to work on it so that you can make as much money per hour life skilling? Because I feel like life skilling is a put your time in now, get the money out later.
There are certain life skills that can net you similar money via active, like for example, actively underwater gathering. When Stragon comes out, just straight up active gathering with the Cairo route, with that mini game, you can actually make more than what you normally would at even Gyfin if you're good at it and you're kind of. I think it's probably a little bit RNG, but they have the same patterns for the mini game. So like, if you get good and like actually remember the patterns and whatnot, you can actually make potentially more than you would at Gyfin. It's just awesome. That. That's not like, but they did mention like at the Festa event, the last Festa event, they mentioned that they want to start to make life skilling, like active life skilling, more money, which is also why they had the processing stone. So now if you're actively doing it, because you're going to get overweight a lot quicker, if you actively do it with the processing stones, you can potentially make more money in the long run, or when you actually make the crates or sell the mats.
It sounds to me, and thank you, Boo, for all of the insight as to the future. It sounds to me like regardless of what we've been hit with for the last month in NA anyway, things are looking more positive than we realize. I think we might have been focusing so much on... inherently, we're a greedy species of gamers, so we probably focus more on our own class, on our own buffs, our own free stuff that we're getting from the game. By the way, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of all the free stuff that they throw us. I almost wish that we could make it ourselves and they'd take that out. I don't like the fact that the economy is infused with free stuff. It's like printing money. Anyway, that's a side note. But it does seem to me like we are moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, I think back to that life skill note real quick. I think people can make as much, if not more, life skilling, at least in certain patches and at certain times. There were people could do it, right? You could make as much, if not more, doing certain life skills. The problem is the barrier to entry for those life skills is very high, and you have to essentially a spreadsheet and put a lot of time and effort to like learn exactly what you're doing, be very cost efficient and manual, as opposed to grinding where you literally just go there and like kill stuff. It's just the effort required is not equal, right? With grinding, it's super simple. You go press some buttons and kill stuff. Life skilling, it's like, okay, let me do a ton of research, look at all these things, make sure I'm being most efficient. It's just a lot more basic, a lot more effort for potentially, or to even get to the same amount of income.
Yeah, definitely. On the other side as well, like you have to look at it from a grinder's point of view. Like if you make them both the same amount, like what's the point in grinding for a long time when you can active process and still make the same cash?
You just thought
Like
that you
I
think
find
yourself-
grinding really fun, and you've got to take into consideration like skill points and stuff like that. Like that's actually a big feature of the game. Like at the moment, there's a lot of players being starved of stuff like that, so grinding's encouraged. And if you make life skilling more like appealing for people, like and it's easier and you earn just as much money grinding wise, you're gonna like a lot of new players aren't gonna grind and they're not gonna push themselves in that way, so they're gonna get fall even further behind. Like they'll have the gear, but like if you're level 61 with less than 1,000 skill points, you're very far behind other players.
Well, and on the game side, you will see less people in the open world, if not as many people are grinding. I didn't think of that till the last second. That is a bit of a fear. There's nothing more of a killer than running around in your MMO and just seeing nobody, even if there's tons of people online. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that they could work on it, and they could potentially, right, like active fishing, for example. You don't want to encourage kind of the AFK or like the super easy life skills, like processing per se. No, you wouldn't want processing to be, even if it was active processing, you wouldn't want it to be equal to grinding. You would want something like active fishing or hunting, right? Those kind of incomes be probably a little bit less, but maybe close to, right? Savage Rift, or is that what it's called? Yeah, Savage Rift is like another, it's not a life skill, it's not grinding, it's kind of like in between, I guess you could say. And that is pretty efficient. Like it is an alternative to grinding. It's great for newer players. Doesn't require gear, things like that. But it's like just under what like top players can make, right? You always want to make sure that the top players do have like kind of the slight edge per se in income per hour potential. Because that's what we play for. That's what we work for, is to have the slight edge over other people and to be able to do the higher content. So you want to maintain that, but at the same time, you could, I guess, bump up, or either bump up income for certain things or lower the efforts required to achieve like those levels, right? The Savage Rift levels of income.
Yeah, that's true.
Savage Rift was such a great idea. I just why are there matchlocks and axes in this game? Why? The beautiful. I was listening to another podcast, and Mac was in it, and he was kind of quiet. He was being Mac, but he had one like eureka moment. I was like, yeah, that was totally worth the wait. When he was just like, this game has amazing combat, it's so beautiful, but then you add this thing like a matchlock or an axe, and it's like, okay, now everyone has to do the same attack. The same clunky, shitty attack. Well, I don't. I honestly, I think that Savage Rift should be an actual rift where you're stopped. Sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? They have it in first-person shooters all the time, where you all defend a spot and you get
wave defense.
Yeah, should be a wave defense with your combat. If they normalized gear score in it, then it could do the exact same thing as the matchlocks, right? If everyone had the same amount of AP DP when they entered, then it would just be whatever skills you want to use. And I think that'd be a lot more fun and more people would use it.
Or you can just, I mean, the downside is like you can actually go in as a witch wizard and get the top score. It happens a lot in Korea. Certain classes you actually can do your combat and still get really high score.
Really? Witch wizards are using their gear, or sorry, their actual...
Yeah, they're using their gear and still getting some of the higher scores.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that was happening at all. I actually did about 2 weeks of Savage Rift because I was being lazy and I wanted to watch some anime while I was playing, because you don't have to pay much attention. And the income was good. It was like 18 mil an hour plus the whatever those things are that you can get the ogre rings with. But I never once saw anyone using anything other than the pistols, the other guns.
Yeah, the other thing is the wave defense seems like a good idea and pretty cool. And I agree. And most people share the same sentiment about Savage Rift, that they feel like it should be focused around the actual in-game combat rather than muskets and stuff. But then it's like, well, what's the difference between that and just grinding harder mobs,
Mhm.
right? Going to Gifted Temple or going to
Oh,
Miramac
true.
Ruin, something like that.
Okay. I think there should be more mini games. When I first started and I heard that when you capture a horse, you have to play a mini game to teach it its skills, I thought it was awesome. I thought the idea was awesome. Obviously, the game is very crappy, so it's not that big of a deal. So I think we're going to be wrapping up in about 5 minutes, guys. So why don't we open up some questions from chat? And I also would like you guys to think about. Thank everyone, by the way, for coming in. Before we even do that, let's actually get a little bit of a plug. So. Good Vibes, you have a couple things going on for yourself right now. Why don't you mention them? And everybody, you can see Good Vibes channel up on the screen. So if you get the chance and you haven't heard of me through him and you get the chance to check it out, please do. He's got a great channel. He's a good ninja. And Good Vibes, why don't you take a moment to plug what you've got going right now?
Yeah, I stream casually on Twitch. I'm a ninja main, Good Vibes guy, but I also host and produce the Black Spirit League, which is currently North America's premier PvP league, if you will. It's weekly tournaments featuring 12 players who got into it. We're actually approaching playoffs this weekend. Runs at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sundays. So playoffs, semis, and quarters are this weekend, and then finals the next weekend. And we will be announcing what we're doing for season 2. And I'll give a few snippets of exciting info about it. It's going to be a different format from 1v1, and we are going to be expanding to EU for season 2.
Hey, I like it. I want to see Namco.
And we've got a lot of other
tournaments.
things. Yeah, we've got a lot of other things lined up for it as well. But that's over at twitch.tv/Black Spirit League.
Nice, dude. Awesome. Namco from EU. I watch you almost every day. You're a fantastic streamer. You've got a great attitude, and you're non-stop PvPing on a Valk sometimes, though. What have you got going on? What would you like to tell everybody about yourself? Take a moment.
My name's Namiko. I'm kind of new to the streaming scene. I'm a Tamer main, totally. Other than that, I just basically stream pretty much every day, but it's not like any interesting content like PvP or anything like tournaments or anything. Basically gathering and random ass PvP in the world. But I guess that's what's fun.
I am a big anime fan, and Namiko's chat always has really interesting conversation about anime. And I feel a little overwhelmed by how much anime knowledge you guys have in the chat, but I've had quite a handful of pretty cool shows suggested to me by your chat. So if you guys are into the anime stuff, if you want to see a good Tamer and a Valk, definitely stop by Namiko's channel. And probably one of the most chill channels I've been in as far as attitude goes. I really like it.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, thank you.
Cheers. And on the other side of the planet, Blue, you don't live in KR, right?
No, I'm in California.
Cali, nice. We got the No Pants Man himself, BDO Blue, the man who brought you guys the hidden stats. I honestly think the game wouldn't be what it is right now if it wasn't for this guy, and he definitely took a bullet for us and is still finding fun in the game, so I highly appreciate it. I love watching his stream as well. Never stops to answer a question about what's going on, although I feel like you're probably constantly bombarded by NA people saying, when is LAN coming out, or when is this happening, when is that happening, and he still finds time to answer. So great channel, definitely check it out, guys. Blue, why don't you tell us a little bit of what you got going on right now?
Not much. Basically, just streaming KR as much as I can. My dog's about to bark, so I can't actually answer too much because she's gonna go crazy in a second.
There she is.
But yeah, basically, so yeah. Sorry, I gotta stop.
That's okay. That's okay. Guys, if you get the chance, definitely stop by his channel. I'm pretty sure most of you are probably from one of these 3 channels. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I am probably the oldest BDO streamer. We're coming up on our 40th year soon. Bit of a fitness guy, and I do voice acting on the side. I will, at some point in time, get the chance to share some of my voice acting stuff with you guys. It's mostly video games and cartoons. But that's just it. I hope to see all of you guys again in the future. Thank you so much for coming. I apologize for the technical issues at the beginning of the stream, but I had to work that shit out, and it had to happen at some point in time, and I couldn't have known the issues would be there until we went live. Last question for everyone. I would like to say, no problem. Thank you very much for coming, Blue. Seriously, you guys are awesome. If you could fix, we'll finish with Blue because he's got his puppers. If you could fix one bug one bug in this game and have it fixed for you. They do it specifically for you. So it could be greedy, it could be a huge scope, it could be small scope. What would you fix? I'm going to go with me first, and everyone who's in my guild that's watching this is already rolling their eyes. Elevation bugs, where you don't get stunned when you're jumping down off of high height. That would be one that I'd like to fix. It's a small thing, but I would like to be able to do gap closers over elevations. I would like to not get stunned every time I fall down, and maybe even talk to an NPC from a horse. Who knows? What about you? Let's start with Good Vibes.
Rubber banding in Node Wars, getting caught on buildings, not being able to move for like 5 minutes at a time.
I got a free structure destroyed last night because no one could hit me while I was stuck in a structure. So I just pulled out my axe and destroyed it, and then I died. But yes, I agree. That'd be awesome. Namiko?
Same as Moonlight, because it's the worst ability ever.
What's the issue with it? I'm not good enough that I notice it. I just account that when I get killed doing it, it's me being bad.
No, it's just broken. Just TLDR is broken.
The protection's not on there when it should be. Is that the issue?
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It's just not working as intended.
Blue might be getting mauled. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I
I'm
apologize.
good.
I need to cut you off there.
She's
You're good? You're not being mauled? Okay. What's your dog's name?
I don't think so. Mellow.
Mellow. Does she get shown on stream yet? I know we got a couple dog streamers.
Yeah,
that actually
every
show
now and then
puppies.
every now and then she'll come over to me and I'll show on stream.
Dogs are greater than people in my mind. Okay, so what one bug could you fix? Or would you fix?
Grass beetles, dude. Get rid of grass beetles. In all seriousness, I don't think mine's necessarily a bug per se, but the fact that like the attack speed, the move speed, casting speed, and animation speeds are actually on the client side, I feel like that they really need to spend some time, find a way to get rid of that, put it onto the server side, because the amount of stuff that people are able to do at the moment with it is just absurd. Like some people actually use it. Like some people are a lot obvious. They go grind somewhere and you can see them. And then, you have people that are actually using it to, power level their trading from level like to master something trade like almost ASAP, because you just put on your move speed and you're just constantly trading all around wherever. And it doesn't matter if you're overweight because you have that move speed hack. And then people are then from Master 10, they're using the move speed hack to do Imperial trading like within like a minute or two instead of, however long it actually takes to get to and from Magoria. So I think that would be my biggest thing, is just fixing the fact that attack speed and all that stuff is client-sided still.
When we found out that the clock was client-side and people were using that, I forget what for. I think it was to make workers finish their work early. And then we found out a couple other things were client side. I was actually pretty shocked that that kind of shit would even be on an MMO. Like that seems like really, I don't know, kindergarten.
For Villa buffs, like the Villa Invitation Scroll. People still use it for Villa Invitation Scroll, as far as I'm aware.
What do you mean?
You can
they
actually
change it still, so you have a longer Villa buff.
If your Villa Invitation runs out, you can change your clock. I'm not sure if this is still, as far as I'm aware, like about a month ago, it was still in the game. You can change your clock back to like a few days ago before. And then from there, you can still buy a Villa buff because the Villa Invitation is no longer expired.
Oh, that's so bad.
Well, yeah, I would just clarify for the stream. We do not condone bugs. By the way, we're just talking about them. Not saying everybody should do these things.
Oh yeah.
So I have rolling screenshots going in the background video. Blue, when you said grass beetles, there was a picture of a giant grass beetle in the background. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to drop onto an Unknown Dude stream and answer some questions. I love interacting with you guys in the chat and in your streams, and I look forward to doing it again. Good luck with all your endeavors, and thank you so much for popping by. Despite any of the grumpiness in Reddit and in this community, I actually think this community is one of the coolest that I've been a part of, and I look forward to interacting with all of you and chat again in the future. Any last words before you say goodbye?
Nerf Mystics.
Good. Nerf Tamers.
Whoa.
No!
Shit's OP, dude.
That's
half
the stream. All right, guys, we got some class bounces. Well, we're going to say goodbye now. You guys are more than welcome to hop off. I'm going to say some final words to the stream, but thank you again for being around. You guys are awesome.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. All right, I left the call. Well, my first podcast. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. It turned into a little bit more about class balancing and PvP. I wanted it to be a bit more overall, but it's so easy to get trapped into all of that stuff. Listen, this is Qui-Gon Jinn, and I will be having some more podcasts in the future. I hope to have one at least once a week. So if you get the chance to drop me a follow, that would make me feel fantastic, and I will see you around again. I love you all for the support, and thank you for being here. And that's about it. I'm going to take a minute to read chat for just a minute or two, and then I'm going to end the stream and probably change some audio stuff that I've got going on. Noah, thank you. Let's see what we got here. Good stream. Thanks, guys. Chaos, Blue, condolences. All of my regulars, I love you. All of the new people on the channel, you guys are awesome. Thanks for stopping by. A special shout out to Jin's Maddie, who got a great promotion recently at her job. So if everyone gets a chance to say congratulations to Maddie, she deserves it. And that's it. I'm out. Have a lovely day. And till next time. As I wait the occasional 10 seconds for the delay. There's all the congrats to Maddie. She deserves it. All right, I'm out, guys. Peace.